Hello everyone, and thanks for coming back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the Eachine Tyro69. It has an F411 flight controller with an OSD, 20 amp 4-in-1 ESC with burst up to 25 amps for 10 seconds. Eachine branded 1104 8600 kV motors on these super flexible 65mm props. The Caddx Beetle V2, which is a 1200 TV line camera, and a 25mm VTX. The kit does come with a Rubicon 25 volt 150 microfarad capacitor. This camera mount is TPU. It does not come with a receiver, and you have to build it. Bottom plate looks to be 2mm. Motor post to motor post, I'm getting about 105mm. My Tyro69 weighs almost 52.5 grams. I flew it on these RDQ and GNB batteries, which brings the weight up to just over 95 grams. So as we get into this flight, there's a few things to talk about. I guess a lot to talk about. Most of it you've probably already heard before. I'm a little slow. I don't really move hype up necessarily in my workflow or my work process. I tend to let things that I'm working on come to fruition and the video to come out before I reshuffle things. Every once in a while I'll reshuffle something just because I'm too excited to contain myself, so I'll put something ahead of something else. But in this case, even when I had just gotten it, I knew other people had reviewed it. So we've got 1104 motors, and they're pretty high KV and 8600. But it does perform pretty well, but I will say something about these props is they're not good. I would definitely just, if you're getting started in this sort of class and you don't have any of these props, go ahead and run them till they get rough or they won't hold a grip on the motor shaft anymore. And then go ahead and do yourself a favor and get some HQ 3x2 props. And I'll show you those props back at the desk. They're much more firm, but I'd still find them to be very, very durable. Plus those high-end flutters that you get on full throttle, those will go away. You're not going to be able to tune it out on these super soft props, especially on 8600 kV motors. They wind up too fast, too high. The blades deformed, and then they start to sound weird. You get the oscillations at the top end of the throttle. If somebody can tune that out, then I tip my cap to them, because that seems like an ultimate challenge right there. So that's the first suggestion I would have. Also plan to get yourself another frame, because this one isn't the most high quality carbon, but that's not why you buy a kit that's 62 bucks right now. You buy a kit like this because you want to get in cheap. So sometimes you have to spend more later. Maybe this frame lasts for a real long time for you. It just depends on how you fly it. But I did break mine, and I'll show you the crash as well as the breakage when we get back to the desk, which will be here just in a few seconds, because the flights, even on a 520 milliamp 3S battery, they don't last all that long. But again, you're not paying a premium for a real efficient motor prop setup. You're paying to get in cheap. So we land at about a little over 2 minutes and 10 seconds. And we can see the cell voltage is at 3.6, which is good for our battery. So as I mentioned, I run these batteries. I run these batteries quite often. And you can, of course, find these from RaceDayQuads. It's a 525. GNB 520. I think we just got a little bit of hanky-panky going on with that extra 5 milliamp there. I think they're both the same. Who knows? Maybe the 520 should be 525. I don't know, but they're the same weight, same design. They look the same. It's been acknowledged that the RDQ batteries are made by GNB, so they're probably the same. But I'll have links in the video description if you want to pick up some of these batteries. RDQ does not carry the GNB batteries, at least last time I looked. They carry their RDQ brand. And of course, if you want to get some GNB batteries, you probably have to buy those internationally, or you'll have to go to Canada through Airblade or RotorGeeks, or you can also buy through Good Venture Drones. Now onto the quad. So my breakage, it's actually kind of tough to see, but it's right here. And I actually flew it. I should show you that footage. So I crashed it into a tree. I went and picked it up. I took off again. And then I noticed that it was sounding really weird. And I thought, oh, I just got a prop bent or something. And hopefully I can get the light on there just right so you can see that ripple. Basically, it delaminated right here. So it didn't have enough force to completely snap the arm off. But the arm isn't strong anymore. So it was kind of funny after I kind of went through and checked on my props, lined them up like this, spun them around, made sure everything was the same all the way around. I noticed that the motors were kind of leaning, so I just started bending them. I just started twisting. Oh, I think I just snapped it some more. I heard a snap. Did you hear that? Well, it's right in there. It's really hard to see. I wish I had a really high quality camera. There, can you see that? It's right kind of between my fingers is where it delaminated and started coming apart. Right in here. But I picked it up and I flew it around a little bit, and then after I kind of twisted on the arms, I knew that I had delaminated this arm, and I still flew around for a little bit of the pack. So it still flies. It's not done, but I definitely wouldn't fly it like this ever again. You risk burning out a motor, especially if you hit high throttle for very long, and you've got all these oscillations that are going to get really bad now, even with these props. One of the things I would plan to do is, if you get this, plan on replacing the frame and the props. These are the props I was talking about. They're the HQ. They're the T65mm PC props with a 1.5mm motor shaft hole. And they're great. They're pretty rigid, pretty stiff, made out of the materials you would expect. And this is the prop I suggest for anything like this where your motor does support mounting screws. Yes, you are increasing a little bit of weight, but I think the only reason you would stay with these props now that these props are out is if you don't fly at throttle, say above 70 or 75%. So if your throttle's staying relatively low or in that mid-range and you want to get the efficiency that you can get out of this prop, that is one reason. Not necessarily this prop. I still don't suggest this prop. You get a host of these props in the bag, and I didn't show those in the quick roll. I think you get 10 pairs of these props. So you've got lots of props to go around, but they're just so flexible. And again, if you're gonna fly in that middle of the throttle, below say 70-75%, these props will be fine. You won't have any problems with them per se. But if you get over 75%, and that's just an estimate, but when you get on the upper end of the throttle, it's going to start giving you fits. So if you fly more aggressively, you're going to feel it. Speaking of feel it, the PID tune, I'll go ahead and put that on screen. This is a PID tune I worked up. I did not have an opportunity to fly it on 2S because I crashed it before I got that far in my review. So this is a 3S review only. So after you've broken the frame, then what? Well, you've got two choices. You can buy another frame when it's available. I think I saw them on Banggood the other day. So you can just get another frame, or you have to venture out. And this is where I'm struggling a little bit, because a good many of these don't come with a 20x20 mounting pattern on them. I do have a TomoQuad slingshot here that does support 20x20 mounting holes. You see them right here. They're the outside holes. This does weigh quite a bit more than this does. So if you have a recommendation for anyone who has one and has broken the frame and is looking for a replacement frame that is not the original, please leave that comment in the section down below. We could sure help some people out, because off the top of my head, I'm struggling to look around my desk or think in my head of any other frame that mounts 20x20. I would say, again, off the top of my head, go to tomoquads.com, take a look at his frames. Also check out airbladeuav.com, check out their frames to see what they have available. I think the cream puff, but it's going to be heavier than this one. So there's a couple suggestions I have, and if you're looking for a frame, so go ahead and go down to the comment section, scroll through there. I know a lot of good people will be down there making good suggestions that are thinking much more clearly than I am in the moment. My overall thoughts on this is, yeah, for 62 bucks, at least, you know, all the components work. And this Tyro series, we've seen sometimes not all the components work. What was it? Like the 130 that they had, it had, I think it was notorious for cameras not working. In this case, everything worked. It's a relatively simple build. Do not cut these motor wires. They are super stiff, so just solder the ends that are exposed to the ESC pads. I did it on the bottom. I did shove my receiver right down here, which I don't suggest because it really didn't fit great, but I decided to go with it anyways. You can probably see there, I'm not really down on this soft mount, and this is all sort of rubber mounting, although I don't know how effective it is. It isn't all that soft, and we do have metal screws that go all the way through the stack. So those are good things. And then you've got the plugs that go to the camera and the video and the receiver and the VTX. All these things just kind of plug in. Only the two that you can get switched around are these two, I believe. And so you've got your camera coming in here, and then you've got your video coming out here. So I believe this one is your camera. There's a manual that lays it out. And if you plug it in wrong, as long as you're not being forceful with these plugs, they'll slide in relatively easy and you can't damage anything. If you don't get real heavy-handed and you plug it in and you find it doesn't have a video signal, then switch these two connectors, just switch them around. That's actually what I did. I looked at the manual as an after effect just to see if it was any good, and it's okay. It's not a great manual, but you don't need to know how to build to put this together, so to speak. You will need to have some soldering skills, and you are going to need to have some setup skills. So Betaflight the BL Heli. You want to get your motor rotation right. You want to get your receiver bound up, connected. So you've got to select UARTs. You've got to tell it what kind of receiver you've got. You've got to make sure that you've got the channel mapping right for your radio. The rotation for the motors is correct and it's selected correct in your flight controller. The gyro on the board, make sure that it shows in the beta flight. You know, if you turn it around like this, it looks just like it is in your hand, and then you know you've got things okay. The VTX here is kind of popped out because of all the crashing I've been doing. But the VTX, I kind of thought it was curious that this kind of support was on this side, whereas I thought the VTX had to go this way in order to get the camera right side up. And these wires between the camera and the VTX are so short, there's no way I could rotate this around to where the antenna would come down in here. So what I did was I just took a zip tie and I shoved it all the way down through the mount. You might even be able to see it between the flight controller and the mount down there. And then I used a little heat shrink just to keep this out of harm's way. But for 62 bucks, like I said, it's not a terrible kit, provided that you get a kit that works. Check out other reviews, make sure you're doing your homework, and then look in the comment section below. So if you do break your frame, you can either take the recommendations that I have of looking at a few different sites, or there might be some other good suggestions from many of the people who come to this channel on a regular basis down in the comment section below. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.